more joint meeting. And before, I hate to say it, but Public Works people go and come every 2 years. The COG's been pretty steady throughout the years, and everybody's gained a lot from it. And it's been somewhat political, but at least the city's been a part of that political action. So,
well, can I comment on that,
yeah.
Tad? The one thing that I think is being misrepresented a little bit is that AB
32.
AB 32.
Yeah, I know AB 32. What's the other one?
Senate Bill 375.
Yeah, 375. That's coming down from the state. The state is using the COG to implement these land uses. I mean, and that's where we have to stop it right now, because that becomes the arm of the state. If you start looking at what those two bills are doing, we were asked on the COG to give our yes or no on those bills and how we want to proceed. That's not our position, and that shouldn't be the COG's position. The COG's position is to provide funding and regional transportation needs, and that's where we should be going. So the state has used, the state, in my opinion, is using the COG as a way of regionalizing everything, and I just cannot support that.
I don't disagree, but I just don't feel like a lot of it's just been expressed with opinions without some background information, and how the two agencies have worked together to come up with this proposal that they're asking for this pretty radical changes in some things.
Right.
Thank you, Ken.
Any other comments?
Good evening, Tim McSorley, Executive Director of the Council of Governments, and seeing no one, I guess I'll jump into the fray a little bit. I think it's important to have a little bit of background. I agree with Mr. Follendorf. There's information out there that is, I think, not quite accurate, and so if I could be allowed to go back and give you some perspective and give you a little history. Councilmember Morris referenced the strategic planning process, and she's absolutely right on mark. One of the things that started with that was a discussion about the status, or permanent status, if you will, of the council. There was concern that the existing JPA had language in it that allowed for dissolution of the Council of Governments, essentially without cause, and that began the process, if you will. During that strategic planning process, there were 4 options. One of those options was to seek a legislative sponsor to have the establishment of the council put in state statute. Currently, there are 7 similar organizations in state statute. The other option, which ultimately was decided upon, was to look at the JPA and the language in the JPA and provide clarity or cause, if you will, in the dissolution section. In fact, the Board of Supervisors about 5 years ago did adopt a resolution to dissolve the Council of Governments. That resolution was rescinded, but that was, again, kind of if you want to call it a threat or something that's hanging over the head of the council. The council, and actually all the partners within the strategic planning process, agreed need to be clarified. So that really got the ball rolling in terms of revising the JPA. The strategic planning process, as Councilmember Morris indicated, included elected officials, staff, Caltrans, and we even had some members of the public. So it was a pretty open process, and looked at what I believe fairly objectively at a number of issues relative to the council, and I think that was a very productive process. What has kind of happened here is the recommended process to look at the JPA has been circumvented. We were going to do that at a staff level and come back to the City Council, the Board of Supervisors, and the Council of Governments with those kinds of recommendations for revisions to the JPA. So this document that you have before you, was created, I think, without some of that history. And I wasn't involved in the writing of this at all. In fact, the Board of Supervisors specifically uninvited me to participate in the process. I've had a chance to read through it, and my purple tags indicate that I've kind of gone through, at least on the cursory level, first level, to see if there are issues in there that having done the job and knowing what processes and procedures are, would offer some suggestions. The other thing is that, as I understand it, the Board of Supervisors directed Public Works to work on the JPA. In fact, they've gone further and worked on an organization and procedures manual, which again was something that came out of the original discussion with the strategic plan. So that's kind of jumped ahead of process. Again, I haven't had an opportunity to provide any input. A couple other things. Councilman Downey, you talked about rotating a public member. And in fact, we already do that with the 3 public members. So having that memorialized in the JPA certainly makes a lot of sense, because we try and do that currently. I think the biggest one is the issue of land use. And I want to be absolutely crystal clear. The Council of Governments has never been, nor as far as I'm concerned, will be involved in land use decisions. That responsibility and authority lies entirely with the City Council and the Board of Supervisors. We never supposed to be, we never intended to be, as part of the, and I'm sure that there's reference to the Valley Springs community plan process. The final product of that process was always intended to be turned over to the county for review, analysis, and decisions. Again, there was never any intent of the COG to be involved in making land use decisions. We don't have the authority, we don't have the responsibility, and I don't want to get into that headache, although it kind of evolved into a headache because there was, again, some misinformation out there that people thought that we were making land use decisions. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we were is a sponsoring agency to apply for the grant. The grant application was reviewed, and actually we wordsmithed the grant application with the community development director at the time, Stephanie Moreno. We spent a full day in attendance at that day-long session with Supervisor Walensky and Supervisor Claudino. We have letters of support from both those supervisors. The grant application was signed by the general plan coordinator at the time, Lynn O'Connor, along with a letter of support from her. We have letters of support from First Five. We had letters of support from Post Office. We had letters of support from the Business Association down in Valley Springs. So to say that the COG was making land use decisions, I think is just plain not true. What we are doing is recognizing the connection between land use decisions and transportation needs. Those two issues go hand in hand. And Councilmember Downey referenced SB 375. SB 375 has a very small clause that applies to rural RTPAs, Regional Transportation Planning Agencies. What we've been talking about that bill for the last year and a half. Contained in that is what's known as sustainable community strategies. And what those are, name kind of implies it. I know people are getting tired of the words smart growth and sustainable communities. But what it means is, how do we make decisions today that preclude decisions in the future? That's kind of the definition of sustainability. We look at land uses, again, relative to transportation. We look at multimodal aspects of land use. In other words, do we have housing immediately or close by, goods and services, so people don't have to get in their car and drive a half a block for an ice cream cone? Those kinds of things. We look at health issues, so we provide pedestrian facilities, so again, people can get out and walk, whether it's for business, for pleasure, or recreation. Proximity to public transportation, which is a big one. So, sustainable community strategies within SB 375 are voluntary. They are not mandatory. Even with the larger metropolitan planning organizations, when they adopt, because they're required to adopt sustainable community strategies as an MPO under 375, even then, the local jurisdictions are not obligated to comply with those SCSs. However, what it does for them is it allows them to be eligible for funding, and it also allows the primary components. It allows projects that comply with those SCSs to reduce the environmental review, because there will be a greenhouse gas emission analysis that goes along with those sustainable community strategies. And if the local jurisdiction chooses to adopt those, then projects that come in for their land use decision making will be, to a degree, exempt from further review under greenhouse gas emissions. So it helps streamline some of the environmental review and project development, project application process. So again, we're not making land use decisions, but we're recognizing the link between land use and transportation. I think those are the primary things I wanted to address. But what I would ask the council, and I think I'm dovetailing with Mr. Pollendorf said, there are a number of issues out here that I think require, demand a good, thorough analysis. If you're going to make changes, that's certainly your prerogative. But please, let's make decisions based on a thorough analysis, based on facts, not rumor, not supposition, innuendo, or other misinformation. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have. I would certainly be happy to participate to the full extent that both the county and the city wishes me to. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Steve DeFew, Angels Camp. Correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, Mr. Sorley, but you're separating the word planning and decisions as two different things. So you are supporting contributing plans and then submitting them to these different agencies, and then they can make the final decision. Is that sort of what you're saying? And are we saying that we don't want to contribute to more government interference and perpetuate something that we can handle as a city or a county on our own and have a good public works person? Is that pretty much the difference in not wanting the COG to go outside that sphere and let the current agencies take care of that direct responsibility? Because I thought it was a little deceiving that he didn't come out and really say that he wants to continue to have land use planning, and then basically I find it very hard to believe that there isn't going to be a big influence on going through this financial exercise and then imply that that's not going to influence a decision that should be, handled by the existing agencies right now. So I still have a problem with it.
Any other comments?
I'm John Ellis. I'm from Arnold, and I'm on the COG board. I'm presently the chairman of the board. On this planning issue, I want to sort of start off with this. I believe the planning issue is a red herring. I think you can talk to your city attorney, and he'll tell you that the power to make land use decision rests solely in the city and the county, respectively, in their jurisdictions. The COG, there is no statute authority for the COG to make a land use decision. So it's just not there. I think it's a red herring. And I think the reason why it's a red herring right now is because it became controversial down in Valley Springs. Caltrans, for whatever reasons, had monies available to help the communities that desired to do a community plan, to organize their thoughts. And at the same time, I think the reason why Caltrans did this is to integrate transportation into their thinking process when they're starting to design what they want their community to look like. And I think that's why that money became available, was to educate the people as they plan their community. So, it requires, another thing, and you're familiar with this, is CEQA. You have to go through CEQA review. COG does not do a CEQA review, has never done a CEQA review that I'm aware of on any of these, on the Valley Springs plan. So it was merely, the Valley Springs plan was a collection and an attempt to gather what the community wanted and organize that in some sort of written form and then pass it on to the county in this circumstance, so it could go through. It starts just like any other process, planning process. It has to start somewhere, and then they're going to have public hearings on it, and all the input from the public will be gathered again. The Planning Commission will hear it, and then the Board of Supervisors will hear it, and the Board of Supervisors will make the final decision. They're the only ones that can. And when it comes to the county, and your board is the only one that can when it comes to the land use decisions when it comes to the city. So I just want you to understand that. I don't understand how this blew up so much. There was a lot of controversy down there. Planning is based on controversy. CEQA relies on controversy in order to identify mitigations and identify problems, so that you can come up with reasonable solutions. The whole plan, or the whole way planning is put together, is to have that public input, have government's role in making the final decisions. And there's notices that have to be done, statutory notices. There's a whole host of things. So that's why I say it's a red herring. And I wish you would consider that. I'm not personally in favor of doing any land use planning at the COG. It's a transportation agency. The reality is, unfortunately, SB 375 and AB 32 is forcing the jurisdictions to deal with transportation more in the forefront instead of an afterthought. And that's what's happening here. That's why they're going through this blueprinting. They're starting to cross regional lines, boundaries, typical county boundary lines. They want to start looking at how the transportation is going to affect the region beyond your county lines. And they want to make sure people are starting to talk about that. It's not going to end at the county line. So when you start tweaking the JPA, I wish you would keep this in consideration. The other thing that I wish you would think about, when you go from 3 public members down to 1 public member, it may seem like it's a good solution right now, but what I fear is if you have 2 members from the City Council and 2 members from the Board of Supervisors, theoretically, those 2 members, each one of you should be talking to your respective boards before you go to that meeting, or after you go to a meeting, and then report back to your board to get a decision on the direction that you want to go as a board. And it seems to me that's where you go collectively to the COG board, and you let your issues be known and what your desires are, and which I think is a good way to do it. I think that's a good balance. But when you give 1 public member the deciding vote, if you have the county opposing an issue and the city supporting an issue,
that one public member is going to decide exactly what's going on. And that's a lot of power for one public member to have. I think having the conversation amongst 3 public members from 3 different areas in the county is productive. It's useful conversation. It's good conversation. You need to take a look at these things. As you know, when you deliberate on issues, you know, the more information you have. You just talked about your water treatment facility, that you didn't have all the information. Decision making is tough, particularly when you're dealing with public funds. So you don't want to cut it off. You want to expand it, but you don't want to make it, too large where you can't get anything done. So I just ask you to think about that when you start making these decisions. Now, when it comes down to SB 375 and AB 32, we may not like it, and I'm absolutely with Rick on what he says. I don't like what the state's doing, but the reality is that's where the money's going to be coming. Government, our state government and our federal government has always issued money with mandates, and they tie strings to it. And you can thumb your nose at it, and you won't get the money. Either if you want to play their game, then you will get the money. So that's the decision. We can sit here and we can make a political stand and say we don't like it, and we won't get the money. And we'll probably get some other problems with it, too, by not following in line. But that's a decision that we need to go into with open eyes. That's what's going to go on. If we want the money, then what we need to do is structure, when it comes to transportation, it's not just transportation, by the way. Water and sewer, CCWD, another integral part of land use decision making. It's going to become huge. Water will become one of the hugest things in this century when it comes to land use. And it will start taking a more predominant role when it comes to land use decisions. We need to recognize this. And we need to educate ourselves. We need to have our governance bodies and agencies adapt to this and do the best that we can. And I really think it's wrong in the JPA agreement to come up with a policy and procedures that's embedded in the JPA. What happens when things change? You have to change the JPA every time. And then you're going to have to go to the Board of Supervisors and the City Council each time you want to change something. That governing board, the COG board, should have some sort of latitude when it comes to designing policy and procedures, because they're the ones that have to make the decisions on a regular basis. And it's going to be very inefficient to say, oh, well, we can't make this decision because it's not provided for here. Now we're going to have to modify the JPA, and then you're going to have to get the city and the Board of Supervisors to agree on this if we're going to go down this road. I don't think that's a smart decision. There was another point that came up before, is that public members aren't elected and they aren't accountable. Well, our planning commission are appointed, both at the city and at the Board of Supervisors. The governor appoints his cabinets. The president appoints his cabinet members. There's a lot of appointments in government. And all the public members here, they serve at the will of the elected officials. And you got to remember that. If there's a problem with a public member, you have every right to take a stand. You as a board could tell your respective representatives on the COG, I have an issue with that public member. I want something done about it. And you can take an official policy as a board and make that decision if you find it necessary. So all I'm saying is you need to look at the big picture. Don't look at what's just out in front of us right now and what's been in ink for the last 4 months, because there's a reason why the COG is made up the way it is right now. It's because of the history of transportation in this county and the problems that we had when there was a imbalance of power when it came to land use to transportation decision making. So I just wanted to throw that out for you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any other parties like to speak?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the Council. Tom Garcia, Director of Public Works for Calaveras County. Just wanted to thank you for hearing this item tonight. We're very excited that it's come before your council for consideration. Just a brief update on how we got involved in this process. I concur with Mr. McSorley or Director McSorley that this came about by a request by the COG to establish the Council of Governments as the Regional Transportation Agency by statute, and the county unfortunately had to weigh in with some concerns over that action with the existing JPA because it wasn't current. There were several issues that were known immediately, like the county now providing transportation or transit for the providing transit service, being a responsible agency for the transit service, whereas JPA listed the COG. So there were small items like that need to be visited, that need to be revised prior to any permanent action being taken. Once we got further into the document and started looking at established practices versus what we thought would be the best management practices, we ran into things where the two agencies weren't cooperating on project delivery, and it would be like an electrician doing your plumbing. The COG had moved into project delivery, construction projects, and I won't touch the land use planning because that's been beat to death. We understand there were some issues on that, and we're glad that they're being taken care of. But I think one of the main concerns we had was roles and responsibilities as outlined in the JPA. The county and the city are project delivery. The COG provides the funding and the assistance and the oversight to get that funding and puts the hammer down when we don't deliver projects and then reallocates the funding. For project delivery, it should be the local agencies. If the public is coming to us to ask why something isn't happening, we should be able to answer them or at least be accountable to them for what isn't happening. The public doesn't go to the COG board and say, why isn't my road built? Why didn't you fund this project? They come to the county and say, why didn't you deliver this project? Where's the contractor? Why isn't he out here? There was some discussion on the current, or what we proposed as the draft update to the JPA on the roles and responsibilities of the COG, whether or not they could do transportation and land use and other activities they're doing now. As written in the revised JPA agreement, in order for the COG to do those activities, the governing board or council would have to authorize that. So if there were a land use plan that the city council or the county board, whoever's jurisdiction it's in, did not want to do or thought the COG would be better able to do it through their consulting contracts, you could delegate that authority through a council vote or through a board vote to the COG. Then it would go before the COG to accept that authority and then issue the contracts. So the jurisdiction's major role as project delivery agencies is protected. But it still allows the COG to do the work if the agencies request that to happen. And that there are issues when a plan is adopted without a CEQA approval or without a CEQA process. It makes it difficult for the agency to enact those components of the plan without a separate environmental review, which is, as you all know, very costly. Doing the environmental review as part of the development of a plan is critical, and it has caused some problems with some of the plans that have been adopted by the COG board, the San Andreas Mobility Plan being one of them. We concur with some of the improvements in that plan, and we're working with the San Andreas community to incorporate those in the separate projects that we have, but we cannot, without an environmental document, bring that plan in wholesale. Without doing our own environmental document, we just don't have the resources or money to do that. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I do appreciate your counsel looking at this item and moving forward with it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments? John, if you just wait a minute, I want to make sure everybody, other people in the audience have an opportunity. Any other public questions or comments, statements? not, a brief point of clarification.
On the responsibility on who's going to do the work to the projects, we're primarily talking about TE projects, transportation enhancement projects, and those are normally written by the agency or the department in the county or the city that wants that funding, and they get the right who's going to be the lead agency. So I don't see there again, I think this is a red herring. It's already built into the way we do business at the COG, is that the city or the council writes how they want this funding to be and who the lead agency is, and we've been following those rules.
Thank you.
I just want to clear that up.
Okay, council members, we've had the full discussion. Yeah, sure.
Just for a point of clarification, it isn't just the T projects. There's also the STIP projects, which is the wagon trail project. And that is probably the biggest project in the county that is going to impact the City of Angels immensely when they start construction. And that is something that everybody should have their eye on. So the management of that project is also currently under the COG. And whether or not that's the best place for it to be, that's something for, I think that's where I'm going to answer to my electeds. But it isn't just the T projects. And with the T projects, again, those are managed by the COG. There was a call for projects in 2005. There has not been a subsequent call for projects. So we're still operating under a 5-year-old list. Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I say something?
Point of clarification. Very true.
Steve DeFew, Angels Camp. Personally, I don't like red herring. And so when I hear this, it initiates a response. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the red herring that you referred to, both of you, about the people in Valley Springs, it was because the public was not in favor or accepted the input that you folks came to them with. Was that part of your definition of the red herring? No? All right, the second thing about us not seeing the big picture, that's probably one of the big issues. I'm really not too concerned about the brain trust of Sacramento shoving this stuff down our throats, but sooner or later, I'd like to take control of us painting the big picture as compared to people dictating it to us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, let's come back up here and...
You going to close public comment?
Pardon?
You going to close public comment?
Okay. Close public comment. No more clarifications or...
No more.
Tuesday morning.
I get prompts all the time, Gary. Thank you for coming, incidentally, and also you, Marita. Thank you for being here. I'm really going to turn now to our two representatives. What thoughts you have in terms of... it seems as though 2-2-1 is a recommendation that you feel and others on the have
Yeah, I still feel strongly about that. I understand where John's coming with that, but as John stated, when we go to a COG meeting, if there's something up there, we should meet with our board here, our council, get direction, and go there. I'd like to know where the 3 people at large get their direction from. So they don't meet with any council; they just direct on their own. So that would be the accountability that I was talking about. The other thing is, I don't know, you can call me old-fashioned or call me whatever, but whenever the state is so willing to give grant money away, which is not free, by the way, just for clarification, we're all paying for that money. There's going to be strings attached to it somewhere along the line, as John did say. And I don't think we really know yet the impact of those strings. They're coming. Those strings are coming. And unfortunately, from my view, I look into the future, and I think the strings are going to be more regionalization brought on by the state. The state's going to tell us what to do, how to live. Heck, I like going 3 miles to a grocery store to get an ice cream cone. I don't want to have to be told that I can't do that. And, that's part of your freedom and liberty that we all have in this country. And I hate to see the dingbats in Sacramento take that freedom and liberty away from us. So that's my spiel.
What do you think we can do as a council to move this along?
Well, I think we should now that we've discussed it, we've got it out in the open, we've had the public input, I think we definitely need to meet with the county and go over
A proposal would
and
be to
take into account what everybody from the audience has said and go from
duplicate what happened originally, where there was a joint
Yes.
meeting between the
Yeah, I think that would
council
work.
and the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, that would be my recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Rick's assessment. I would.
How about you, Craig? Sat on there for a year.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to envision we're going to have 10 elected officials, a slew of staff with polarizing opinions. So how do we ever come to a conclusion, I guess, when you have so many people? And not that they're not bright folks, not that everybody's going to try to do their due diligence, but that will be here probably for 6 months, hashing back and forth. So I don't have a problem with meeting and listening to what the supervisors have to say and engaging in dialogue back and forth. I guess I'd kind of like to have you and Elaine, and maybe if it's Marita and I guess is Tom still on? Is Tom?
Yes. Yeah,
You
Tom.
get together and kind of work things out at that level without too much, because then what happens is you open it up to a whole bunch of people inputting, and then the folks involved that really need to make the decision are influenced by the outside. So
I would be okay with that, Craig.
I just think, you have so many. Tonight was a perfect example that we've had, I don't know how many different opinions about the same thing. So I guess I'd rather see if maybe Marita and Tom and Elaine and Rick could kind of sit down, go over it, kind of say, okay, this is give and take, and then take a proposal back to the subsequent boards. I'd like to see that. But
Okay.
Well, I agree with Craig as far as 5 supervisors and 5 councilmen sitting there trying to hash it out. It'd be a long, drawn-out affair. I think it'd be fun. And I'd only want to drive 2 miles for an ice cream cone. But anyway, I think Elaine and Rick can do a fine job. Maybe they want to take some staff. Maybe the county wants some staff. But I think it's something that needs to be worked out at that level. I don't think the whole shooting match needs to do it.
Okay.
Okay, then I guess I can make a motion.
Want to make a motion?
Yeah,
We don't really have an action. You'll have to guide us, Richard.
Yeah.
But we're trying to develop a direction for the city.
I think your agenda is adequate. It says consideration of amendments to the joint powers agreement, so that fits within the scope.
Okay. So
Maybe we ought to ask a member of the county if they want.
well, this is our decision.
So, yeah.
I realize.
Let the county decide what they want to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to be giving direction. We're going to have here's a proposal that the city be represented on a party of 2, the present members of. You go ahead.
Well, I'd say in consideration of the amendments to the COG Joint Powers Agreement, I would suggest that 2 representatives from the city meet with 2 representatives from the county and hash out the ideas and come back to their bodies with a formulated plan.
Okay. Is there a second for that proposal?
Well, since I brought it up, I'll second it.
Okay. The proposal has been made, as you just heard, from Councilmember Downey and seconded by Councilmember Turco. I'd like to call for a vote. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, carries 5-0. So we're looking to have you 2 meet with 2 of the supervisors.
Elaine, do you want me to set it up?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Okay.
What if they don't want to be sent?
Well, we'll have to have a discussion about that another day. Item number 4 on our agenda is the a resolution approving an agreement between City of Angels and Department of Forestry. I'd like to call on you, Greg Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second year in a row that we've been fortunate enough to be selected for this volunteer fire assistance grant. This year, based on the economy, we kept our requests very small, and our matching portion of this grant is $4,492. The item before you on page 2 about the 8th line from the bottom shows that we intentionally kept that line item high enough that it would allow us to take advantage of this grant should we have gotten it, which we did. So this allows us to double the city's money. We can get $2 worth of safety equipment for every dollar that we spend.
So, Rick, Greg, what you're saying is that the $6,000 is listed under safety equipment account number ending 138, right? And so it falls below what your proposed budget is.
That's correct, sir.
And this did come before the safety services. And since it was in the budget, since it was budgeted and it was less than the budgeted amount that the council agreed on, at least preliminarily, we felt that we would recommend this.
Okay, questions? Nope. Public comment? We'll come back up here. We have before us a resolution 10-28. I'd like to have a motion to adopt that.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 10-28, resolution approving agreement between the City of Angels and the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection for the Volunteer Fire Assistance Program for the Cooperative Forestry Assistance Act of 1978.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Boating has proposed and Councilmember Morris has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. We'll pass Resolution 10-28. Next item, Police Dispatch Services Agreement. And we'll call on you, Todd.
All right, well, thank you for continuing to hear this matter. I hope you have in your packets the cost comparison that was requested, and I hope that you can see that there's been some progress made in terms of the county coming down on their price for the next 3 years. And so basically, due to the fact that they were willing to come down on the cost and come closer to what Ripon was proposing, basically just asking for you to take a look at that, and hopefully I can answer any questions that you have about it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I have any other questions that you might have, and hopefully I can answer those.
Okay, questions?
No, Todd covered this in the, was this safety services or personal finance? Because it's back to back. He covered it, and of course one of the concerns that Todd had was the closeness with the county and the relationship with the county and continuing that. But I have to admit, I think it was when the sheriff and the CAO got together with Dave and us, and we talked things through, that there was some misunderstandings that allowed them to kind of reconsider this dispatch. So it's a recommendation. There was a recommendation of the safety services that we recall this back to the agenda and rescind the first recommendation to go with Ripon and accept this proposal, albeit a little bit more expensive than what Ripon would have provided for us. In the grand scheme of things, we think that the continued cooperation with the county is important enough for us to pick up some of this slack and go with the 24/7, because now it is going to be a 24/7 coverage, along with the numbers part of it and the that kind of the part of the contract. There's also better dialogue in terms of reports that are needed we're going to be given. There's also a small concession from the sheriff regarding the second channel, which Todd brought forth to us, saying that was an important key component to some safety services issues. So the sheriff is willing to kind of meet us halfway on that. So all that said, it's the recommendation of the safety services that we recall this. We rescind the initial discussion to go with Ripon, and we accept the proposal from the current proposal before you for the county of a 3-year, 24/7 service.
Other council members, question for Todd?
No.
Okay.
Well, I have a comment, Mr. Mayor. I guess if I had my druthers and this could have started over again, I would, be in favor of having this through the Calaveras Sheriff's Office. It does make sense for our area. It does make sense for everything that you've listed here, Todd. But it does disturb me that we went ahead and used up Ripon to get to this point. That really disturbs me. And maybe we had no other choice than to do that, but I just don't think that's a great way of doing business, is try to partner up with somebody and then basically putting a knife in their back. I just don't like that type of operation. I'm going to vote in favor of this to go to Calaveras, but I did want to voice my opinion that I think it's a fairly crappy way of doing business, and I would hope we would restrain from doing it again.
Okay.
Well, I have a comment to that, and Rick's got a good point. We talked about that in great length, and we really never wanted to get to that level. And for whatever reason we did, I think now we've got a better process. And I think we've got someone sitting across the table from you that's going to help support that. So you're absolutely right, Rick, because that was a wrong way to do business. We just kind of felt we were forced into that.
No, I
situation.
think there's blame on both sides too, Todd. And I'm not blaming anybody. You were directed to do something like that, and that's great. But the county didn't respond to us like they should have. They responded after we had to sign an agreement, or basically agree to have an agreement with another agency. So the whole system was kind of flawed. But the only ones that really suffered in this thing was Ripon. That gave us their time, effort, their best ability, and everything to be a partner with us. And now all of a sudden we're saying, hey, thanks a lot, but no thanks. I just don't like that aspect of it.
I totally agree. I don't either.
Yeah, I know.
Any other questions for council members? No. Public comment.
Steve, to Few Angels Camp, you sort of diffused what I came up here for, Rick, because I want to congratulate all 5 of you for having the moxie to do what you did when the county showed so little respect for Todd for not returning his calls. And I'm sure Ripon will understand long term. But if you fellas hadn't taken on the initiative to do what you did and represent the city in a proper way and not let us be vulnerable to pay this monthly fee that they were doing it, who knows how long they would have kept it going. So I even know Elaine, I think, voted that night with reservation, but still all 5 of you did what you had to do. And I think Todd is a little more comfortable with a couple aspects of this service that might be a little more expensive. But it took a managing city council to get to this point, and you guys ought to be congratulated and recognized.
Another public comment.
I'm sorry. Didn't see her.
Mayor Lynch and City Council, my name is Pat Gutman, and I'm a resident of McCallum Hill. And I'm coming here to make a statement from the perspective of a resident of Calaveras County. I wish to comment on the proposed award of Angels Camp Police and ambulance dispatch duties to the City of Ripon. It is my view this is a poor decision, and here is why. I'm a retired operations manager for the San Francisco Emergency Communications Department, their 911 center, and I now live in McCallum Hill. Giving this contract to Ripon and laying off 2 Calaveras County dispatchers would, in my view, impact the whole county. If there were a catastrophic event such as an earthquake, fire, civil unrest, or terrorist attack in our county, we would be short 2 county-wide dispatchers. These low-frequency, high-risk situations take a lot of personnel to handle. Ripon would be the beneficiary of 2 additional dispatchers at a time when we need them most. When the 911 attacks occurred all of San Francisco, we had personnel assigned to A and B 12-hour shifts for 1 week. Now, with the limited dispatch personnel in Calaveras County, we'd be very hard-pressed to do this. It takes 6 to 8 months to train a dispatcher, and this is very costly. And when the county dispatch center loses personnel, it takes up time for a trainer for months. It is my understanding that we're paying for a new jail and 911 emergency center with the jail bond. We will have all this new technology and little staff, and it makes no sense. Also, there are some issues such as officer safety, geography, hotspots, accurate geofiles. The dispatchers here in the county are well aware of the hotspots. They're able to advise officers when there may be a risky situation that they're entering. The geofiles, I would assume, are accurate. And I think it's a bad idea to outsource any more jobs out of Calaveras County. And so those are a few reasons for keeping our dispatchers in Calaveras County, and I hope you will seriously evaluate overturning your decision to award this contract to Ripon and keep our valuable personnel here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other public comments or questions?
I'm Renee Rowe. I live at 1002 Hillcrest Street, and I too support keeping our dispatch services here in Calaveras County forever. I would hope that we would be able to negotiate with the county from here on out to always keep law enforcement in any kind of emergency situation right here in the county. I know that from personal experience, it would just take one thing going wrong for all of us to be very sorry we did it in a different way. So I just thank you for reconsidering it. I thank the county for reconsidering the costs. And I just really appreciate that you're keeping it right here.
Any other public comment? I'd like to make a comment. We have 2 supervisors here tonight. I have made comments in prior city council meetings. I absolutely object to the county charging our citizens $123,000 a year for dispatch. If we were not an organized city with our own police department, the county would be spending the money for dispatch, and the county would be adding to its sheriffs. The city does not get any credit for policing its own jurisdiction and giving the support, mutual aid and support, which is excellent, between the city and the county. We get absolutely zippo credit for having our police force in existence at the crossroads of the county. And the citizens of Murphy's or Valley Springs or Copperopolis are not double paying for dispatch services for police. They pay their property tax. It goes to the county. The county takes care of dispatching for their geographical area. Not so in Angels Camp. We send our money off to the county, but then in addition, the county nicks the city $123,000 for these charges and gives us Zippo credit for having our own police force. That's my feeling, and that's my opinion of it. So, to my mind, it's a rip-off. The county is requiring the citizens of Angels Camp to double pay for dispatching, and also no credit for the police coverage that we provide. That's my little spiel. Anyway. I had to say it again. We had 2 supervisors here, and thank you for coming so you could hear that directly. You don't need to respond to it, but I wanted you to hear it. That's how I feel personally. Okay. We'd like to come back up here, and we have before us a council action A and a council action B. So council action A is consideration of rescinding action.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept council action A, consideration of rescinding action taken on August 3rd, 2010, to enter into an agreement with the City of Ripon for special services, which consist of police dispatch services.
If we do these separately, Richard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Turco and seconded by Councilmember Morris that we rescind the action taken on August 3rd to enter an agreement with Ripon. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. So that carries 5-0. Mary? Item number B on this item is authorizing the city to enter into a 3-year agreement with the county.
Mr. Mayor, further say that we move to authorize the City of Angels to enter into a 3-year agreement with the County of Calaveras for special services, which consists of police dispatch services, and the authorizing the city administrator to execute a special services contract with the County of Calaveras as indicated in under agenda item number 5.
Second.
Second from a motion has been made by Council Member Turco and seconded by Council Member Morris that we authorize the city to enter an agreement. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstain? No. Abstain? Carries 5-0.
Todd, are you and Dave going to be reaching out for Ripon now?
I'm sorry.
You going to reach out for Ripon?
Yes.
You and Dave together?
Yeah. I'll
Might want to send a letter to him.
absolutely. And I'm actually, I wouldn't say I'm friends with Linda Johnson, related the supervisor down there, the manager that helped put this all together. But I've worked with her in the past, so yeah, I'll definitely take care of that.
Thank you. Question? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What's the process? What do we? When will this take effect?
I will. I'll let the sheriff's department know that of the actions tonight, and I will. Hopefully, they'll be able to plug the numbers in to the proposed contract with some other minor language changes that they've already submitted, and just once they've edited the proposed contract that they've already submitted with the new figures and made some minor changes to the other language that we requested they change, we can bring it back. And if the action, I believe you voted tonight to give the city administrator authority, so I'll get that back to Mr. Richards as soon as I can get it back from the county.
So when will they take over the 24/7 service?
That will have to be. I mean, I would assume it'd be immediately because.
Okay, just let us know. I'd just be curious as to when that might happen.
I mean, it should be effective as immediately.
Okay, item 6 on our agenda is the appointment of a public member to the LLD. Gary Corletto.
Good evening, Gary Corletto, LLD Chair. As noted on your agenda, we have had a LLD resident committee resign from our committee after the August 5th meeting, and in turn we've had a volunteer come forth, Mr. Paul Bukowski, to fill that term. And in our September 2nd meeting, the LLD resident committee recommended Paul to take Roy's place. If you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer. And also, Paul is here tonight. Should you have questions for him?
Nope.
Okay. Nope. Thank you.
Nope. Ready for a motion?
You ready for a motion?
Public comment first.
Public comment. Mr. Bob Maneri may have some comments or questions. How about Mr. DeFew?
No, Mr. DeFew doesn't have any comments.
No comments. Move on.
What was that?
Nothing.
No, we want to know if you had any public comments.
Let's not get in a contest.
Okay. We'll bring it back up here. No public comment. We have a motion or a recommendation for action to appoint a public member. Would like to have a motion?
I move that we appoint Paul Makowski as a one public member to the Greenhorn Creek Lighting and Landscape District to complete the 2010-2012 term of Royce Backman.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilmember Turco and seconded by Councilmember Bodine that we accept the volunteering of Paul Bakowski to the Greenhorn Creek LLD. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Carries 5-0.
Just your luck, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
We all agreed.
Item number 7, sidewalk waiver for CAL FIRE. I'd like to call on Dave Hannum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight before you, we got a request, well, actually, a number of things to kind of give you some background. The CAL FIRE, as you are aware, is constructing a new fire station, and as a part of that station, they're in the midst of be tearing down some trees, some very nice big trees on the property. As part of that, we've been working with the Department of Governmental Services. That's kind of like their legislative arm. To save as many trees as possible on the property. And the reason being that most of the trees that were being torn down were surrounding our schoolhouse property, which, with the way it looks right now, is very nice with the trees and the park bench on our property. And so we looked at the plan for CAL FIRE, and their original plan has a sidewalk the full length of the property, as is standard. However, on what would be the northwest portion or northeast portion of the property, there's a 30-inch oak that would need to be removed if the sidewalk was to be put straight across, which is right there in the front, right by the schoolhouse. The Department of Governmental Services came up with an option to put the sidewalk around the tree, but based on the handicap, based on decisions that were made by their environmental coordinators, that within about 4 or 5 years, that tree would die, based on the fact that the sidewalk is within the drip line of the oak tree. So after going through the code and looking at different options that are available, the code allows a developer to have a number of different options for curb gutter sidewalk. One, of course, is the city would require them to put it in like any other construction project. There is a deferment of construction. The code allows, section 12.20 allows for the developer to defer the construction up to 6 months by written notice. So in case there's problems with issues, they could do that. The last option, the other option for the city, that the city or developer would have, would be an in lieu payment. And basically what that is that the developer, or in this case CAL FIRE, would submit an estimate of what they would be looking for to pay in lieu, give us an engineer's estimate, and then the city council would at that time accept the in lieu payment instead of the construction of the sidewalk, in which case the money would be then put into a fund for the city to build sidewalks wherever the city would need to build sidewalks at. And so basically staff, those three, based on what's happening with CAL FIRE and the trees, staff is recommending the City Council adopt Resolution 2010-27 or 28, approving the in lieu payment option for CAL FIRE in the amount of $5,883. The length of sidewalk that we're talking about is 69 feet of sidewalk, and that would be on the north. It would be on the north side of the property, the northeast side of the property. I've included the estimate for your review, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Nope.